Good afternoon, good morning. Listen, Dr. Lett here. Another amazing episode of I'm Dr. Lett, the podcast. I always love highlighting local heroes no matter where they're located across the world, in my amazing state of Ohio, or right here in my backyard of Youngstown. Now, when you think about additive manufacturing, does Youngstown, Ohio come to mind? Probably not. But this interview will show you why Youngstown, Ohio, yes, that Youngstown, is leading the way for additive manufacturing. And this guest is going to explain why and how Zac is someone that is pouring his heart and soul into this community, not only because he has to, but because he wants to and believes in this workforce leading the way for the technology of today and tomorrow. So without further ado, Zac, please introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I'm Zac DiVencenzo. I'm president and co-founder of JuggerBot 3D. We're located here in downtown Youngstown. We do have some expansion, which I'm sure I'm going to touch on later today in Boardman, Ohio. But I'm just excited to be here and love to share my story.
Thank you so much for that, Zac. Now listen, JuggerBot 3D is an additive manufacturing machine builder whose mission is to design and build the finest 3D printing solutions in the world. I just had to state that out loud because that's happening in Youngstown, Ohio. Now, I'm not going to name any other cities that may be doing that work. The world is changing in Youngstown. And to be clear, I always tell everyone that watches my interviews, I will put Zac's contact information in the description. Connect with him, connect with JuggerBot 3D. Let's change the world together. Now, Zac, your career spans so many different industries: welding, management, 3D printing. Tell us how your upbringing in the Mahoning Valley shaped your resilience and development as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, happy to share. So as you and I spoke previously, it really was rooted in manufacturing. And I think that's been pretty much, most of the families here in Youngstown and the surrounding suburbs or surrounding cities is that you were had a grandfather, an uncle, an aunt, someone that was either working in a steel mill, that was working in aluminum extrusion, plastic injection molding. We don't really understand or see this when we're growing up, but after you kind of step back and see, especially as a business owner trying to utilize my surrounding resources, you start realizing that this little surrounding, suburb or smaller city compared to Cleveland and Pittsburgh has everything. And it just is a testament to how much Youngstown was maybe the lifeblood of those bigger cities, because from across of metal to plastic to ceramics, it was happening here in Youngstown. So my background really started with welding and fabrication. My grandfather, he was known as Nick the Welder here in Youngstown, Ohio. He had a weld shop on the south side of Youngstown and supported local families, supported local businesses. He wasn't just welding for industries. He was welding for, people's cars. He was welding for people's semi trucks. He was, it was a big reason why we, had a success here in Youngstown. And that's where my foundation came from. My upbringing from my father, my uncles, my grandfather, multiple generations had a chance to have a piece of growing his business. And it was probably the start of who I am today and how I think about how things are made, right? I've had interest my entire life in the world of electronics. For the longest time, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I excelled very well in science and math. I went to Struthers High School, which is just a small suburb of Youngstown. And, back in 2009, if you scored well in science and math, medical was a track for you. I didn't know what engineering was. And now what's interesting, 20 years later, STEM is such a big part of schools that if you score well, engineering is now top of mind, right? And so I had manufacturing in my surroundings, people that I was, close to, family members, that was heavily making something with your hands. And if you weren't in metal, you were doing something else, right? You're a contractor, you're plumbers, you're electricians. That still was there. And then I had a kind of an excitement to create. That was being in the medical side, or supporting, or if it was obviously something where I'm at now, which is engineering and development of automation and 3D printing equipment. So Youngstown was such a fantastic support. And I think some of those capabilities of us having, my family, a business owner, gave me a pathway to say that not only can I make and I can be in manufacturing, but I also see the need to build a business and have some control in the way you grow a business and hire people and support others. And those two pathways kind of gave me that confidence. I never thought I could, couldn't do it any other way. So
Wow.
Going to college and leaving college, whatever my pathway was, if it was going to a tech school or going to college, I never thought I couldn't have the ability to follow in the footsteps of someone like my grandfather.
Well, I absolutely love that story, and your journey is something that really should be celebrated, which is why throughout this interview, I love for everyone to keep in mind Zac is doing this right here in Youngstown, Ohio, the Mahoning Valley. And that's a story that is shared by so many people. As Zac stated, you knew someone working in manufacturing. There's probably not too many people where their grandparents, their parents, someone's worked in steel mills, auto manufacturing, something, right? And so, Zac, thank you so much for sharing that. And before we go too far, as the co-founder and president of JuggerBot 3D, can you tell us about JuggerBot 3D and how is it going to revolutionize, just the world essentially?
Yeah, happy to do that. Well, I'd be remiss to not be able to, state that I was blessed to surround myself with brighter, smarter, ambitious people. And you said co-founder, I was very blessed with having friends in college that had the same mentality, right? Had the same drive, had the same grit, wanted to make things, had family members that did this before them. The work ethic, there's no such thing as holidays, right? It's just a problem you still got to take care of, right? It's a responsibility that's inherent in us. And so I met a group of people that share the same values. We started JuggerBot 3D actually out of college. So out of Youngstown State University, we were all industrial and systems engineers. And we saw a need to want to develop the finest 3D printing solutions, known to man, and a little ambitious at the beginning. We immediately had some humbling events, right? You're thinking through ideas, you're trying to put together business plans. First and foremost, you recognize you just don't know everything. And that's a hard part, is having perspective that you don't know everything. And we were also blessed by there being a incubator in Youngstown, Ohio. And this is what a lot of people were completely unaware of, is that the Youngstown Business Incubator, and especially in 2014, was recognized as the #1 university-affiliated incubator in the world, right? Wow. In the world, 2014. They got it. You can look it up. Now, they were primarily focused on software, right? So software is really picking up and it's continuing to grow. And as AI was a foundation for the future. But we saw a need to focus on advanced manufacturing. We were actually the first hardware company within their portfolio. And we can remember the days of them giving us a little bit of office space and us catching carpets on fire, trying to weld and assemble these 3D printers inside their, what they would probably give to someone that was in software or legal, and give them the foundation to say, hey, advanced manufacturing is the way to go. We need to buy more buildings. So for 12 years, JuggerBot has been designing, manufacturing, assembling, and installing advanced 3D printing equipment. The technology that we develop falls under a category called material extrusion. And the most simplest form to think about this is like a hot glue gun. This is how I taught my grandma the first time I told them I was creating a 3D printing company. I said, Grandma, take a hot glue gun and you heat it up, right? But you're going to put this cold stock material in the back of it. I'm going to pull the trigger and it's going to heat up and it's going to deposit. And I said, if you were to write your name and then pick your hand up and write your name again and again and again and again, you would take a 2D image and make it 3D. Because that's 3D printing. That's really as simple as it is. Except I'm going to automate, in the event that you're an artist and you can write your name really well, I'm going to automate that process. I'm going to just like, and this is where people kind of never put two and two together. Just like any other manufacturing process, at one point in time, it was manual, right? CNC is computer numerical control, but we call it CNC because we think it's machining. Machining is the technology, right? You're subtracting material away. And before, someone was manually doing that with a chisel and a nail, and then they're doing it with, bits and drills to remove material. And then one day someone said, well, I need to automate this process. I need to make it a computer numerical control. So all 3D printing is a automated process and a computer controlled, additive way. And I always like to joke around by saying, clay pot manufacturing is additive manufacturing, right? I take clay and I'm working it into a 3D object. That's additive, right? So what we do is really close to hot glue guns, right? We are literally depositing molten plastic layer upon layer in 2D images. So if you were to take this water bottle, for an example, and section it into 100 2D images, just like your Xerox machine would see a 2D image, and I stack them layer upon layer, that's what the computer is seeing, and that's what's going to automate motors to move and extruders to lay down and deposit material. So JuggerBot has just perfected that over 12 years. We built small systems that would print parts like my water bottle. But over the past 5 years, we saw a need to scale it. So we have 3D printers that actually can print 10 feet by 6 feet by 6 feet tall. Very large parts, right? And a lot of where the industry told us, kind of, because we were putting our ears up to the sky to say, hey, what do we need to design? Because if we're going to be a successful company, we can't just build cool products that we think's cool. No one's going to buy, right? So we got to listen to the industry. And the industry was telling us large parts, and it could be for prototyping. There's a lot of large things that you see every single day, and you're like, I wonder how that thing's made. But if it could be prototyped very quickly, maybe to make their decision to manufacture it faster. Tooling is what we call the low-hanging fruit in our industry, because when you think about 3D printing, you think about printing the widget, but you forget that you can actually print the tool that then you can still use to traditionally manufacture that widget. And so that has been an area that we have identified as a huge opportunity to say, hey, we'll 3D print the tool, bring your tooling costs down, your time to market faster, and validate your short run productions so much sooner, and be a critical area for you. So that's JuggerBot, where we see the future going in the world that we live in, is advancing it to where it's just as you think of CNC machining, as you think of additive as being one of a tool in your toolbox for manufacturing, for the future, and advancing that technology to be simpler, resilient, workhorse, to the point where you feel like you can run with limited activity. And that's the benefit of 3D printing, is that it's lighthouse manufacturing, or lights out manufacturing. You can run this almost autonomously.
Now, we need to give a special shout out to the Youngstown Business Incubator. They get a lot of credit, I would say, locally, regionally, and or beyond that. But it's always the right time to shout out really the organizations and the entities around Youngstown that are helping advance companies like JuggerBot. So that is an incredible story, and I actually did not know that. So special shout out Youngstown Business Incubator for continuing to promote the advancement of manufacturing in the Mahoning Valley. Now, with that, your company is putting Youngstown, Ohio on the map at a time when the area is experiencing a manufacturing revolution of sorts. Where does the belief that Youngstown, Ohio can be an additive manufacturing hub, where does that come from?
So it's interesting. You and I come from the, same area, same age. We have seen it. Our fathers and grandfathers have seen it. We've heard the negativity around Youngstown. Yep. I originally went to school in Tiffin, Ohio, or Findlay, Ohio, and you and I both know you get the negatives way more than the positives of what Youngstown is known for, the blight that we're seeing. It was 2015, the first time I heard a positive about where I'm from. We were in Long Beach, California, and it's called Rapid TCT. It's one of the largest rapid prototype manufacturing exhibits or conferences in America. And they saw my badge. They they don't know who JuggerBot is. They don't care, right? But they care. They saw Youngstown and
Said,
immediately that's the hub for additive manufacturing. And this is
Wow.
2015. Shocked. Blows my mind. I'm like, yes, that's exactly right. We're going to change the narrative. So I would say it's been 10 to 15 years, and maybe longer, but I could tell from what I have been involved in, 10 to 15 years of constantly changing the narrative of what it was known for, or what we experience, or whatever comes with it. And I could tell you now, in my circles and where I focus in the industries, the customers I'm working with, our past has no true dictation of our future anymore. It's been an amazing feeling that it comes up in no conversation. There's no disadvantage that would give us an opportunity to work with some of the biggest companies in the world. It's actually only positive. It's that we're close proximity to Youngstown State University, right? A university that's trying to reinvent themselves and get back into research and development and support for engineering and any advanced manufacturing, especially with what they're doing with the what they call the ETC, their Excellence Training Center, and how to plus up some of even the workforce development that they're doing for people that maybe have lost their jobs with General Motors, or how they, it's across the board, not just at a young generation, but even an older generation who's trying to reinvigorate themselves. Tied in with Youngstown Business Incubator. And then for those who don't know the call, the America Makes, which is the National Accelerator for Advanced Manufacturing, is in our back door. It was established in 2012 when the Obama administration decided to have this national accelerator, and this trifecta has been such a foundation for it. But I can tell you that what's the most promising part is that every organization is now looking to put us on the map with the bigger cities, which now that's interesting to me, right? Is that there's never been more of a time for this city to legitimately compete with Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, and Cincinnati. We're competing at the highest level for federal dollars. We're competing at the highest level for state dollars. And when you think about companies relocating to come to Ohio, we're now legitimately competing with those companies to come to this location, because you constantly hear the need to have Dayton or the need to have Columbus, or what does Cleveland have to you? And I use a company like Ursa Major Technologies as one of the prime, examples of a Colorado-based rocket company making a decision to put their entire additive headquarters here in Youngstown, right? And grow it and blossom it and lease buildings and hire people. And that's just one example of many. And this is obviously a big reason why America Makes and the new organization, which is, I think you're alluding to, is the Youngstown Innovation Hub, a consortium of such to continue to either do one of two things: take small companies like where we started and grow them and provide them pathways to innovate, or take larger companies that are mature, that are looking to reinvigorate their capabilities and have their reasons to be here in this area. But I could definitely tell you, and any of the interesting people listening to this conversation, is that the past is not haunting us whatsoever anymore. Actually, it's almost to the point where maybe it's a generational shift that the new generation doesn't even know about Youngstown, of what we went through. Maybe if we'd stop talking about the old days, that's probably a point of it. If we stop talking about the bad situations that happened, I bet future younger generation would even know it existed. But I'm incredibly excited about the future of Youngstown, because we are competing at the highest levels.
Wow. And I absolutely love that response. And I will say one thing, and Zac and I spoke before the interview, is that the Mahoning Valley, I'm going to speak for you a little bit, Zac, is that this area, our workforce, it is so versatile. Mm-hmm. When you have folks transitioning, as Zac alluded to, auto manufacturers and other career fields that, may not have worked out at the time, but we have the people here, we have the infrastructure, we're reinventing, maybe the way we may do some things, but everything is here to be the hub that we envision it can be. And so I love that response 100%. And another thing, Zac and I, we spoke before the interview, and this doesn't surprise me at all. For anyone listening to this, is that when you're from the Mahoning Valley, chances are you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and which can also be such a huge benefit. So when you think about starting the next JuggerBot, make a connection because someone knows someone that has your work ethic, your drive, your resilience. And Zac, it doesn't surprise me that we have a few mutual connections. Now, for anyone watching this, Zac, tell us, we know that you are a local hero and you've aligned yourself with other local heroes. But tell us, who is your biggest inspiration and why?
Wow, great question. Oh man, I don't know if it's just one, because I have did everything I could to listen and constantly ground myself and absorb what's around me, because from your normal cheerleaders in your life, like my mother is my number one cheerleader, right? It doesn't care, and my grandma was the same way. Back then, I was a first grandchild of a big Italian family. She was telling bank tellers that I'm getting straight A's or something's happening, and then I would meet those bank tellers 6 years later and say, hey, your grandma used to come in here and dropping off pens to build the business, but also they already knew about me before I got to them. And so you got people in your life like that have just been nonstop positivity, right? That's gonna build you up. At the same time, you need the people to ground you and humble you, right? So I've had the fathers and the uncles, that kind of put you in your place to some degree, to, hey, you got to earn your salt. You have to, this isn't given, this is earned and deserved, like you deserve it. And you work through those. So I was blessed to have a balance in my life where I'm constantly being told that I can do anything I can, and probably more some, and then others that were kind of balancing you, hey, this is where you need to be. And then at every stage, I've done everything I could to align with a mentor. I always tell people that I'll be your number one grandson, because like I will sit and listen and pull up everything I could. But I had great people as coaches. I was athletic in high school and in college, and I prided having great people around me. My grandfather obviously is my number one inspiration in terms of resilience, in terms of survivability, and just wanted the grit to make something. And you know what? Actually, what's interesting is before he had the weld business, he had a restaurant business, and he probably had that for a short period of time. And when things didn't work out and things were failing, he knocked the doors down and opened it up into a weld business. And it wasn't just like tuck tail and go figure it out, like move cities. It was, I'll start something else tomorrow. Like I don't care. I'll figure it out another thing. Like I have all these capabilities. I'll make something myself. I also got very lucky because like I told you at the beginning of this, I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was graduating high school. I went away for college. I came home because my grandfather had cancer, and he asked me at that time to help him run the business. And I took a year off from college to help run that business. And while he was going through chemo, I met a gentleman who was a professor at Youngstown State University, and he spent several weekends visiting me just to keep coercing me to leave. I went to Heidelberg University for pre-med, and just kept on going. Hey, you should be an engineer. You should come home. I never can find engineers who can weld and fabricate, and also obviously own a business. And I made the jump. And then for that period of time, that was my mentor. That was everything I looked to grow. And then I just kept doing that. I kept being very blessed of being someone being put in my life that was very inspirational. I had a president of an organization. I worked for a company called Commercial Metal Forming. Shout out to them if you want to talk about legacy in Youngstown, Ohio. The Cushwas developed commercial intertech, and it's a 105-year-old business here in Youngstown, Ohio. Now, it's been through ownership, but it has still remained a pretty big foundational item for the Valley. But I worked for Commercial Metal Forming for a period of time. And again, I just kept finding more individuals and they all did something different, right? If it was from my mother to my father, to, my grandfather of welding, to professor in academics, to a president that showed me financials and running a business. It was almost like I took a piece of each one of them and then kept molding myself to be where I'm at today. So now I have a interest to grow. JuggerBot 3D, we're currently at 20 full-time employees, counting myself. And there's nothing more than I want to be at 40 in the next year or two. But now this is also a period of my life that I've been trying to give back.
Yes.
If I'm just having these conversations with you, sharing my story, or participating in a board or a foundation to support them on where the next generation of technology needs to be focused on. But now I feel that it's my turn to actually have to give some of me away to grow the next person.
I love that. Really, for anyone watching this, and if you've watched any of my other interviews, you know that I highlight heroes and amazing people doing amazing things within their community. Zac is no exception to that. In fact, he highlighted mentorship, relationships, community, just all the things that I really try to promote to all of you. And that when you seek out great people, I believe that you will have great outcomes. Now, with that, Zac, tell us, in 3 years, JuggerBot's impact within the Mahoning Valley will be what? You somewhat touched on it, but
I hope that we have done well for continuing to grow our business, to bring in a widespread group of individuals, from technicians to engineers to people in management. I hope that we grow it to a point in time that we really can support the local workforce, and that we're also potentially giving back to the local workforce by educating and promoting and growing, because it will be a 1 + 1 = 3 to continue putting. I don't want to say that putting Youngstown map. Youngstown's on the map. Now it's just making sure it stays there, and that we have a legacy for what the future is going to be. Our business has also been very supportive in trying to revitalize buildings and industry. Actually, just last year, part of our growth in JuggerBot was an opportunity to actually procure our first building, which is huge, because you're growing and you're always like, oh, I'll rent and I'll lease. But when comes the day that you own? And what comes the day that you're a true piece of it? And last year we had an opportunity to buy 24,000 square feet of a location off of Southern Boulevard in Boardman, which is still Youngstown. And we had the opportunity not only to buy it for JuggerBot, but we bought it for the growth of the company I just mentioned, Ursa Major. We knew that they were needing to grow. We knew that in order for companies to want to sustain, maintain, and grow, that buildings are going to be just as much of that creation. You need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the support. And if we're going to go from an ideation to an actual manufacturing and stick within the lifeblood of what Youngstown is, the buildings are going to need to be changed, right? The buildings are going to need to be acquired. And so we have a lot of interest in making sure that not only are we growing, but we're growing with the intent to stay here forever and really push to the limit. So if that means buying more, that means building our own, we have a real need to grow the economy in that format as well. And not just for JuggerBot. This is also what's the future for this area. If it's, you guys hear, I'm sure, all the time, the needs for drones, right? Drone manufacturing. That's a real thing. And I could tell you there's great companies in the Valley that are putting a lot of attention to, if it's design, if it's the supply chain management, if it's the piloting and the utilization of them. But just like we talked about 3D printing, the cool thing that we're starting to see in this Valley is there's a lot of people, if it's from our regional chamber of commerce, or if it's to NCDMM and American Makes or YBI, they're staying on the forefront of what's the next thing. And that's what's really cool, because if you get out of the mindset of 3D printing, just think advanced manufacturing. It could be any way to manufacture. We have a really great, real great ecosystem of people trying to think of the next 3, 5, 6, 10 years and what's needed. So drone manufacturing might be the next up and coming thing that you hear on this podcast. And I got a good person probably for you to interview, so I'll give you that suggestion.
Yes.
That hopefully we're a piece to your answer of like how we're growing and how we're supporting. I hope hopefully that JuggerBot is a piece of the puzzle no matter what, right? That we're either growing people ourselves, we're either procuring buildings for ourselves and others, or that we're supporting workforce for them to grow their own businesses, or them to be able to support businesses that are bringing on technology.
Yes. And Zac, listen, now for anyone out there, I hope that you caught what Zac did. The Mahoning Valley, we are notorious for supporting one another, because that's what we've had to do. We've had to be scrappy and gritty, resilient, and rely on community. And when Zac mentioned that he has someone that he would love to now share their story with all of you, it doesn't surprise me from a fellow Mahoning Valley resident. But for all of you out there, we're large enough in this area to where you can change the world, but we're small enough to where I'm interviewing a local hero doing advanced manufacturing, right? So the people are out there. Just connect. And Zac, I am so excited for this next question. So as I alluded to throughout this interview, you're a hero to so many, Youngstown and beyond. What advice would you give to anyone afraid to pursue an idea because they want to wait until the time is right?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would say that there's no time better than now than to surround yourself with people that have a similar feeling of wanting to create and do more for themselves, and that's been a motto that not only do I have, that we try to put into the company is we try to put into the mindset of, give more than you receive, and good things will obviously work in whatever favor is needed. But for people that have ideas, people that are looking to, do something different and innovate, there's resources. And I will definitely tell you that you will get as much as you want based on your involvement, right? And like the YBI, for an example, YBI has so many resources people don't know. But if you never ask, you will never know. I mean, they're doing better at marketing. And if you follow them, I mean, with their Shark Tank event, I mean, they go above and beyond to just let you know, call me with an idea. Maybe there's some funds that they have to get your idea off the ground. It could be something as simple as a coffee meeting to just like ponder your idea to see if it's something real or not. So it's something that can actually allow you to quit your job one day and do full time. Or it could be something like, matchmaking is such a big piece that people don't think about. You're not by yourself. You're not in this unless you want to be. Like if you want to be by yourself and you're like, I don't want anyone to work within me. But if you don't have that mentality, if you have a mentality that that it may require more people to take your idea off the ground, I can tell you that I've got more benefits of just putting people together at the right time and making friends, long-lasting relationships like we're just talking about now. For 12 years of being a part of this ecosystem of this business, we have just been in to your point of kind of like, someone, you're going to be around someone. Obviously we're small enough to be able to be involved, but there's been so many times in our 12 years that we didn't need each other. Two groups of myself and someone else didn't need each other at year one, but my God, we need each other at year 5. Yeah. You just never know when that's gonna, when you're giving a favor and when that favor is going to be coming to return to you. So, like I said, from my story, we had the idea in college. Maybe we had the young, naive momentum and we felt like the stars are aligning, and maybe our life would feel different if we had a family and we had kids. I'm sure circumstances really make a difference for how you think. And I just did a panel discussion with America Makes and the YBI, and I actually just shared my view on how younger generations and older generations think about innovation. And a lot of it comes down to this invisible bumpers that we have on us. And younger generation, no bumpers, right? They don't have anything on there. They didn't fail yet. They don't know if they go far right or far left and outfield, they can just go and run with it. And maybe a wiser older generation who's lived through a lot kind of narrowed themselves down to say, maybe if I did this idea, I don't want to risk so far that I don't have my job, or they don't know the outcome, so maybe they're a little bit more risk averse. And so I'm sure circumstances play a big piece in it. But no matter what, if you're young generation, older generation with an idea, it all comes back to just surrounding yourself with groups, asking the questions, participating, going to events, learning. We have podcasts now. We can listen to these things, right? I'm sharing with you my ideas right now.
Yep.
Until you reach out to me and let's just start throwing out ideas on a whiteboard to see if it's a good fit. I would give you that time. And there's plenty more people like me in this community that would do the same. So you got an idea, don't don't sit on it to the point where you believe you can't do it. You probably can do it. Someone just got to be around you to get you excited for it.
Yes, and thank you so much for that, Zac. Now, listen, I don't know if Zac is offering to buy any of you coffee. I'm kidding, but reach out, and as we conclude this incredibly insightful, inspirational, and motivational interview, for anyone that you've touched, Zac, how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So LinkedIn. So you can look up Zac DiVencenzo, and I'm sure there's more of my information will be provided outside of this. But LinkedIn is a very easy one. Connect with me from at a professional level. I obviously have an opportunity to look you up. I can see what you've been working on, what your resumes are like, and instant message me through LinkedIn. Emails are great because I actually have the ability to flag it to make sure I go back to look at it. And then I'm in Youngstown, Ohio, right? I'm in the YBI. I'm located in what we call Tech Block Building 5, or what was just recently renamed as, I believe, I'm going to butcher this, I believe it's the La Mancha Center. But I'm downtown Youngstown. I'm sure there's going to be a circle that we're going to meet up with some way, somehow. And just reach out, and I'm happy to, at least if I can support or help you, and put you in the right good hands with either YBI, American Makes, or maybe even someone from YSU that can get an idea off the ground.
Yes, and thank you so much for that, Zac. I don't want to end this interview without thanking you for your time, your insight. I've learned a lot, and I've grown up here, so I can't imagine for the people that are viewing Youngstown from afar and they're wondering what exactly is going on. You see these news reports and these amazing things that are occurring. You're speaking to someone or watching someone that is doing the work day in and day out. Now, Zac, as we conclude this interview, tell us, what takeaways should viewers leave with?
Well, I can tell you one of the biggest takeaways you should go home with is identify. And I'm sure you already have someone in your life, but if you don't, branch out to obtain some sort of mentorship, some sort of fellow person you can just vent to, but not in terms of venting for just life purposes, but obviously for professional or just, to get you excited, to move forward with an idea and not get you so blocked in your own mind. Mentorship is a really big piece of this, and don't look at it as a negative if you don't feel like you can do it all by yourself. At the end of the day, it does take a community. It does take a village. It does take, your surrounding. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my employees, with the people by my side day in and day out. I wouldn't be without with my family, with the strength of my wife, to live with me for 12 years of being an entrepreneur and going through the highs and lows. I wouldn't be without I had the constant cheerleaders like my mother and my father, and just the mentors I've had with my grandfather and others. So your takeaway, is to truly cherish the mentors you do have. And if you do not have any, there are people here in the Valley that would be more than welcome to bring you into their fold and listen and learn from them. And secondly, would just be to have more of a positive mentality with giving more than you receive. And I could definitely tell you that it has worked to truly want to see your brother, your friend, people next to you. You want to see them rise, because it's only for your benefit and for the community's benefit that we all blossom in this situation. There's really no competitiveness here in Youngstown. We want to see everyone from East Side to West Side grow to the furthest extent they possibly can. So that's the biggest takeaway, is really wanting to have an interest in growing the Valley, an interest to want to be able to be surrounded by fellow people that want to see good and just listen.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Zac. It has been an honor. Listen, this is one of those episodes of I'm Dr. Lett, the podcast. Zac, thank you so much. And yes, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.